and welcome to Esoterica and Nonsense, a podcast where we discuss myths, legends, folktales, fairy tales, supernatural phenomenon, and religions from around the world. I am your host, Annabelle, your local Californian brociopath. I'm sitting here on Moon Day. I'm deciding that Moon Day is going to be the day that I release pepisodes. I'm a little bit behind schedule. In the future, I'm hoping to release at midnight Monday morning. But you know what? We're just trying our best right now. Hi, it's Moon Day. It's November. Fuck, you guys. Fuck. I mean, I don't have to tell you, or maybe I do. I don't know. But it's intense times on planet Earth, and I'm fucking disappointed. I'm truly disappointed that grown adults are still waging war on each other with some kind of excuse that they think is valid. I feel like there is no excuse for war and there's no excuse for violence. That's something that we teach children, you guys. We fucking teach kids not to fucking fight each other, and yet we allow adults to do it. It's just mind-blowing. And it's embarrassing. Like, come on, you guys. You know, sometimes, I know that there's life on other planets. I know that for a fact. And sometimes, this is like a silly daydream, but sometimes I think of, like, if there was ever like a yearly, or even like every great year, which is every 26,000 years, if every great year there was like some like dinner, some banquet where like representatives of each planet would show up, you know? Like, I think about the Earth table. Like, think about the representatives of the Earth table. Giraffes, octopus, fucking lynxes, panthers, like bonobos, dragonflies. Like, the Earth table is fucking cool. Like, think about Team Earth. Team Earth is fucking lit. And we're literally just destroying it and killing each other and animals and plants and the planet. The planet is our mom, and we're just shitting on her. And then we're like, oh, we're running out of resources. Like, resources are forever. Like, there's literally no reason for us to be acting like this. I'm super sad. So anyway, probably if you're listening to my podcast, you probably already feel similarly, because you probably would have stopped listening a while ago with all my rants. But I'm just fucking pissed off, you guys. I'm pissed off. So anyway, in these past few months, I've been learning more about the human exploitation that has been happening in parts of Africa, and I was really disappointed when I found out that all the material in lithium batteries, which are used for things like phones, iPads, vapes, like basically all the technology we've been using, even battery powered cars, all has basically there are mines in the Congo that are exploiting people. Some people are actually slaves. Some people are being paid pennies at best, and I'm just fucking I'm sad. I'm sad to hear that, and it's just really disappointing. But it is a good reminder that everything in our capitalistic system is built on human exploitation, human trafficking, human slavery, and a variation, a spectrum between them all, you know. So why am I bringing this up? One, because that's what I'm thinking about. But two, I don't know if you can hear those sirens. We'll see in post, but I'm in Mexico City. There's going to be a lot of traffic on the streets, and we're going to vibe with it. Here we are. I'm just drinking some tea right now. I'm drinking some Chicōmecōātl. If you haven't already, now's your opportunity to go on Blue Willow, Google Blue Willow Tea Spot, and it's in Berkeley. And their website has incredible teas imported from small farms around Japan, Taiwan, and China. Their teas are amazing. My favorite is the Chicōmecōātl, which translates to golden eyebrow. I think this is probably the 50th time I've said that. So if you haven't done so already, go buy some Chicōmecōātl and drink some Chicōmecōātl with me as I discuss some plant goddesses. I kind of went down a plant goddess rabbit hole, and it happened completely organically. And basically, I was interested to learn more about some things about the Congo. And so I looked up a goddess, and her name is Mbokomu. And it kind of like led me down this like winding path of thought, if that makes does that make any sense. It led me down a rabbit hole of thoughts, and you'll see where I'm coming from. So let's just hop right on in. So there's a goddess, Mbokomu. She is a goddess from the Congo, and specifically of the Ngombe people. I do apologize for my pronunciation. I really want to try my best, but I'm an English speaking idiot, so here we are. Okay, so why did I choose Mbokomu? I'm obsessed with her. She is considered the first woman of Earth, and she's considered the first gardener and the ancestor of all people. Oh my God, I have chills reading that, because I feel like that is humans' purpose. The human purpose is to be a steward of plants. I do believe that this is a plant kingdom planet, and just how bees are pollinators, humans, in my mind, are seed spreaders and manure makers, and we give our bodies back, so we're like complex seed spreaders and cultivators. Plants depend on us to cultivate them and steward them. And so, like, allegorically, this is super touching for me. But, okay, well, we'll get to that later. But there's already sparks, like lighting off in my head. So, okay, Mbokomu is considered first woman of Earth, first gardener, and ancestor of all people. Like I mentioned, this is the belief system of the Ngombe people. And these people are located in what is today called the Republic of the Congo, but specifically the northwest along the Congo River. Okay, so Mbokomu is the daughter of Okongo, and Okongo is a supreme being. He is above all men, above all spirits. And he is associated with the ancestors, who are still an important part of community and reality as they're woven into the fabric of reality, as well as he is also associated with each individual, almost like a guardian angel. So this is very reminiscent of like the idea of like the one God. And it actually is reminding me a lot of Anu, who is the main godhead of the Anunnaki, which I covered in Introduction to Aliens Part 2. But I think I should do an episode specifically about the Anunnaki. But in a nutshell, the Anunnaki are written about in the Mesopotamian tablets. In modern day, we consider it their religion. However, in Mesopotamia, they didn't have the word for religion, and they claimed that this was a history and that star beings came from the sky, engineered humans. And anyway, the figurehead, the major god of this star being clan is named Anu, and he also is considered, the god, the main god. And though he has children, he's considered the creator of our realm and the omnipotent and omnipresent figurehead, the father. And so, basically one could claim that every single religion on earth is a derivative of this Mesopotamian documentation of this actual alien race / god race known as the Anunnaki. I'm bringing that up because a Congo is reminding me a lot of Anu. His name starts with an A, and this language, this rhetoric is very reminiscent of Anu. He's above all men, above all spirits. Already there's like a hierarchy in his description, and that he's like omnipresent. This is very Anu language, and I just always keep that in the back of my mind because I do notice that a lot of world religions, I mean like literally every world religion, is layered with similarities to the Anunnaki and descriptions of the Anunnaki. Okay, I'm just planting that seed in your mind. Okay, so a Congo is considered a spirit, but he has human qualities and characteristics. Okay, so they he's not quite human, but he's humanoid. So now a Congo lives in the sky. But the legend goes that long ago, a Congo lived on Earth, and he became tired of the noise and the hassle. So a Congo decided to retreat into the heavens for a peaceful life. And originally, humans lived in the heavens with a Congo and the other gods. However, one day, a Congo's daughter, Mbokomu, started to cause problems with everyone. Okay, full transparency, pause. I fucking researched as much as I could. I went on all kinds of different websites. I could not find any elaboration on Mbokomu. Of course, these stories are part of an oral tradition, so anything I'm finding online is obviously going to be like pretty brief and not super in-depth. But I was kind of disappointed that there was no elaboration into what Mbokomu did, because all they say is that she was causing problems with everyone. And obviously, as someone who is a woman, my mind goes to like, was she really causing problems, or was she challenging the authority of this patriarchy? You know, already a Congo is being described as above all men and above all spirits. And like, it, to me, it would make sense that his daughter, a female, would be like, what the fuck? You know, like basically just asking questions and possibly challenging authority. That's where my mind goes. But again, they aren't giving us any specifics. For all I know, she could actually have been a troublemaker and causing real problems. So I'm just pontificating. Okay, so Mbokomu is causing problems, and a Congo is fucking tired of her shit. Did I say that right? Mbokomu is causing problems, right? I said that. I'm just covering my tracks. Mbokomu is causing problems. A Congo, her father, is fucking tired of her shit, and he decides to cast her to earth. So he lowers Mbokomu and her 2 kids in a basket down to earth. So in this basket, he also sends them with cassava plants, maize plants, and sugar cane. Okay, I'm going to repeat that because this is crucial. I want you to bookmark this in your mind. I'm going to get to this later, but bookmark this. Mbokomu and her 2 kids, she has a son and a daughter, are sent down to earth in a basket with cassava, maize, and sugar cane. Okay, bookmark. Okay, so Mbokomu and her son and daughter are now the first people to inhabit planet Earth. And she decides to plant a garden with these plants. And this makes Mbokomu the very first gardener ever on Earth. My heart is like overflowing with joy. This makes me so happy. I mean, this is like my dream. Okay, this garden is thriving. The garden is lush. The garden is beautiful. But Mbokomu is worried that after she dies and after her children die, that no one will care for her garden. So we all know where this is going. Naturally, she approaches her son and asks her son to conceive a child with his sister, her daughter. And at first he is like, fuck no. But she pleads with him and begs him and explains that she really wants there to be caretakers for this garden that she's planted. So her 2 kids conceive a child. So the daughter, who's now pregnant, was wandering the forest one day, okay? So imagine a great forest. We have this pregnant daughter, and she's wandering the forest, and she finds a hairy but friendly being. So she helps him shave. And actually, so if you listen to my last episode, which was Tales of Palestine, there was a couple stories that mentioned ghouls and ghoules. And what's interesting, actually, a similarity here is that according to Palestinian belief and possibly greater like Arab culture belief, if you encounter a ghoul, they often have very long hair and like long unkempt beards and like long unkempt eyebrows, and that if you want a favor from them, you're supposed to help like groom them and specifically trim their hair, which I found really interesting. So the daughter of Mbokomu helps this fucking guy shave, this hairy forest dweller. And they assume that he's human because he looks human. But in fact, he was a sorcerer. Which also is really interesting to me that in these Palestinian folktales, these ghouls, which also could use magic, had like long unkempt hair. And then in this story, this sorcerer also has long unkempt hair. And it actually, like, to me, it ties to this idea of wildness. Like, in my opinion, no one is born a sorcerer or magical. I mean, not necessarily. Like, there are different bloodlines. You could be born with, you know, if you're not a human, with extra abilities. But, like, my point is that, like, I think that as a human, the more in tune with nature you are, your abilities heighten, your psychic abilities, your dreaming abilities, even your abilities to possibly do sorcery are all heightened when you are in tune with nature. So anyway, I think these are really interesting like symbols here that is something to consider, that like here we have different cultures in completely different parts of the world, both associating hairy features with magic. Okay, so here we have this sorcerer. He's been shaved, and his name is Ebenga. And Ebenga actually means the beginner. So Ebenga casts a spell on the pregnant daughter, and this spell dictates that her first child will be brought in the world as a sorcerer, as a person with the ability to do witchcraft. And it is thought that witchcraft brought evil into the world, and evil and witchcraft has never left humanity since. So Ebenga, the beginner, is the bringer of magic, but also evil into humanity. Ever since then, all descendants on Earth are descendants from Mbokomu, and specifically descendants from her 2 kids, who are also doers of magic. Okay, so some alternate info, like there are different tribes in the vast Congo area that have stories of Mbokomu and slightly different variations. So according to some stories, she's known to dislike green things, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know exactly where that comes from, as she was a gardener, but alas, other stories consider her to be the cause of droughts. And also, some stories say that Mbokomu is known to slow time down so that seconds become days and days become years. I love that. And another fun fact is that there's actually a mountain on the planet Venus named after Mbokomu. Okay. So, now I want to get into some like nitty-gritty facts. So that's like the tale. Obviously, like I just gave you like a bullet point listing. I'm sure if you were in the Congo or met someone who grew up hearing these stories, like you get some like meatier details and some more drama. But in my research, I do really want to touch on some like really, really big things that I discovered while researching this story. So if you remember earlier, I asked you to bookmark this thought that when Mbokomu was sent to Earth with her 2 kids, she was sent with cassava plants, maize plants, and sugarcane. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get into it. We need to break this fucking down. So, cassava, if you don't know, is often referred to as yuca, or a gente de Brasil. We call it mandioca. It's basically like a starchy root. If you've like never experienced this plant before, I would like consider it like a cousin to a potato in a sense. It's rock hard. It's a root. It looks almost like a sweet potato or a yam. It's like long, with tapered ends, and basically it's a starch, and it's really common. It's actually native to Brazil and South America. And so it can be made into a really nice flour, which kind of has like a gummy, almost more like mochi texture. And basically, long story short, this is mind-blowing, you guys. Technically, cassava is from Brazil and was not brought to the Congo until the year 1558. 1558, okay? So that's about 500 years ago. The Portuguese brought it to the Congo. This is intense. Okay. So, just to be clear, like 500 years ago was a minute ago. And nowadays, in the Congo and other parts of Africa, a really common food staple is known as fufu, which is, honestly, the easiest way to describe it is like a doughy blob, which you use almost like you would use a bread. You know, you take little pieces of this dough and you would use it to mop up some soup or mop up a sauce. It's like a starch accompaniment to your meal. And so obviously now, like, cassava or yuca/mandioca is a really big part of Congolese culture and other cultures in Africa. However, what's really interesting to think about is that this technically was introduced by Europeans in 1558. So before mandioca, in the Congo, most people were growing millet, banana, and yams. However, cassava was considered drought-proof at this time, kind of like a miracle plant, and the Portuguese brought it to the Congo as a gift. Now, why would the Portuguese bring the Congolese people cassava? Now, actually, I am saying Congolese people. However, at this time, when the Portuguese were showing up in this part of Africa, what we now call the Congo was not like a united kingdom. There were tribes and also separate kingdoms, but just to keep it simple, I'm referring to them as the Congolese people, but like, I just want to be clear that these were separate nations, if you will. Okay, so at this point, the Portuguese were getting really interested in Africa because of the slave trade. And so it was really important for the Portuguese to make friendly trading alliances with different kingdoms of Africa so that they could buy slaves from them. A lot of the slaves, a lot of the people that were enslaved, that were sold at this time, were often prisoners of war or even neighboring tribes that people had beef with. So, a really big tactic of the Europeans, and specifically the Portuguese, was befriending a large nation, and then they would supply them with humans that they would sell, so that they wouldn't have to do any of the work. And frankly, the Europeans would have trouble doing so because they could not navigate. Okay, so maize was also a really big part of that. Maize, or corn, which we call corn, but maize technically refers to the greater family of maize. So like in the United States, we think of like corn on the cob, but technically like maize would be other things that you would make, like, tortillas out of. There's tons of species, so that's why I'm using the word maize. Okay, so maize is native to the Americas, and it's considered to be from southern Mexico area, so that would be like Mayan territory, but it was brought to South America in two waves. First around 6,000 years ago, where it spread through the Andes, and then around 2,000 years ago, it was spread through the lowlands of South America. And then it actually also was spread to North America around 4,500 years ago. Okay, so this is just like a fucked up fact. I don't want to say it's a fun fact because it's not fun. It's a fucked up fact. But when the Spanish actually came to the Americas, they feared that eating too much maize would turn them into savages, because they believed that the physical differences and cultural differences that they had with the Mayans and the Mexica were due to their diets. But classic, because it grew so well, they ate it anyway and brought it back to Europe, where it became very popular. And it actually spread into Portugal and Gibraltar. So the Portuguese also brought maize to the Congo as a gift. And lastly, we come to motherfucking sugarcane. This one is the darkest. This is fucking dark, you guys. Fuck, it's fucked up. Okay, but here we go. So sugarcane, I actually didn't know this, but sugarcane was first domesticated by the Papuans in New Guinea, and another strain was also first domesticated by the Taiwanese. So these are two separate strains of sugarcane, and sugarcane is actually considered to be a grass. Sugarcane, like I mentioned, was first domesticated by the Papuans in New Guinea and the Taiwanese roughly 6,000 years ago. And interestingly, sugarcane, the ancestor of what we now call sugarcane, was originally fed to pigs, which is a fun fact. So eventually, through the migration of the Austronesian people, which are people of the islands of Southeast Asia, Polynesians, and people from the islands off of New Guinea, these people became nomadic, and they spread this sugarcane grass into India and other parts of Southeast Asia through trade. And so over time, this ancestor of sugarcane became hybridized with other grasses and spread all over the world, and specifically to other parts of the Mediterranean and northern Africa. So, fun fact, the first known production of crystalline sugar was in northern India, and it is recorded in Sanskrit and Pali texts. Again, at that time, India was recording a lot of things, so technically somebody else could have done it first, but they may or may not have recorded it on tablet or paper, just throwing that out there. So fast forward around the 8th century, Arab traders brought sugarcane to the Abbasid Caliphate, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and deeper into North Africa. Here we go. Now we're going to fast forward to the conquest of the Americas. The Spanish brought sugar with them, and the Portuguese did as well. As you can imagine, sugar is very addictive, and it also grows in warmer climates, so it doesn't grow super well in Europe. So this is like the dark, fucked up irony of all of this. The Portuguese would bring sugar to the Congo as a gift, but they were also buying humans from the people of the Congo, right? They were selling these people into slavery, where these people would grow sugar, And the Portuguese would profit off of this sugar and use that to buy more humans. It's just this like really creepy and like weird exchange where they're like giving this plant as a gift, but also enslaving people to then farm this plant, right? So the reason why I really wanted to bring this up is in this story, this story is presumably much older than 500 years. The story of Mbokomu and her father, Congo, are presumably much older than 500 years old. And so it's safe to assume that the original versions of these stories, which were told orally, feature different plants. These plants were introduced by the Europeans, and probably over time, as they were farming these plants much more than other plants, a storyteller would alter the story and change yam to yucca or cassava, and change banana to sugar, or whatever it is that the story originally featured. I don't know. The other thing I really wanted to bring up too is that it's beyond just the plants. The Portuguese and the Europeans had a huge impact on Africa. So like I mentioned, the Portuguese gave these plants, they introduced these plants to the Congo in around 1558. And the Portuguese first reached the Kingdom of Congo at the end of the 15th century. So that's like the end of the 1400s. I mentioned that at that point, most of the people were in separate tribes or smaller kingdoms. And because the Portuguese were so interested in human trafficking, they really wanted to keep a good relationship with the locals, and they wanted to make sure that the locals were profitable. So that's why they brought them these cash crops that worked so well for them. Specifically, cassava, because it was drought proof, was an amazing cash crop. And another really big thing is that the Portuguese brought Christianity. I mentioned earlier in the story that this Abenga character, the sorcerer, is considered to be the bringer of witchcraft, but also the bringer of evil. And like when I heard that, it sounded so Christian to me. Because most ancient cultures, from what I've learned, don't see magic as evil, but the exploitation of power is what is quote unquote evil. But that's something that lives within all humans. It's not like magic has a personality. Magic is energy, magic is power, and there are people that abuse it and people that use it to the benefit for all. And so when I read that Ibenga was the bringer of evil and also witchcraft, I was like, it's like smells so Christian. But then of course, as I started researching these plants, it all became very clear to me that this story, though I think the bones of it are really ancient and reflective of the locals, I think a lot of the details aren't necessarily a reflection of the ancient and more tribal beliefs that these people had. So I mentioned that 1558 was the year that the Portuguese brought cassava to the Congo. And from 1580, which is only about 20 years later, to 1820, well over 1 million human beings were trafficked and exported to the Americas as slaves. Well over 1 million human beings. So these crops, which now in this story are a gift of the gods, are a gift from colonizers, from human traffickers, from exploiters of land and humans. And so what's so interesting, for me, what really resonated is that like this man, Abenga, is considered the bringer of evil, and yet the bringer of these plants, in a sense, are also a big bringer of malice and wrongdoing. So again, I just want to mention that like I'm pontificating here. This story does come from a long ancient oral tradition, and I will never know the specific details that were original to the story. But I do think it's important to really think critically when we read stories like this, because the more colonized an area, the more exploited an area, the more exploited a people, it is more likely that their culture and traditions have also been tainted. That's something I think that is really important to remember and grasp, that through trafficking, genocide, famines, and indoctrination with things like Christianity, these things tear away at the traditions of peoples. And even a story that at first glance sounds like an old folk tale could actually be deeply layered with colonized rhetoric. Oh my God, I need a sip of tea. Okay, so after I read this story, like I mentioned, did a really deep dive into plants. And I was reminded when I was looking and researching maize that there is a corn goddess of the Mexica and also the Mayans. So this naturally led me on a snaking journey of different plant goddesses, because I think one element of the story of Mbokomu that I think is intact, that I can feel is intact, is this idea of Mbokomu being the first gardener. The idea of femininity, the archetype of femininity being associated with fertility and plant stewardship. And that really resonates with me, especially as women menstruate and blood is quite literally like fertility and life and death. It's just like, it's all so tied into the harvest and the seasons, and I just fucking love it. I love plant goddesses. Okay, so that brings me to Chicōmecōātl. Chicōmecōātl is the corn goddess of the Mexica or the Aztec. I am calling them Mexica because technically Azteca is a Spanish word. Technically, Mexica is a little bit more accurate and encompassing, but I'm referring to the Aztec Empire, Aztec belief. So, Chicōmecōātl translates to seven serpent. Coitl means serpent, and Chicōme means seven. She is the goddess of agriculture, the goddess of nourishment, goddess of plenty, and the female aspect of maize. So there actually also is a male aspect, and he is known as Centioitl. And both of them are symbolized as an ear of corn. That's like their symbol. But also she is depicted as a goddess. So I mentioned her name directly translates to seven serpent. And it is thought that this is supposed to be a reference to her duality, as she is the bringer of food and wealth, but also the bringer of famine. And seven in the Mexica belief is the number of luck and generative power. That is so interesting to me because seven is my lucky number, but also in the tarot, which stems from Egyptian mysticism, the number seven is the chariot or the Merkaba. And this is the concept of movement, change, astral travel, like incredible power. So I'm always really interested when other cultures have aligning energies to these numbers. Okay, so for the Mexica, serpents were seen as symbols of fertility, renewal, and transformation because of their ability to molt. But also, serpents were animals, or are animals, that can swim, burrow in earth, and climb trees, which makes them the master of all of the realms of earth, and makes them very spiritual, as they can transcend the realms. And this, oh my God, I fucking love this. Serpents are also considered the symbol of blood and rain due to its liquid-like movements. And blood and rain are the life-giving liquids, which allows humans and animals to survive and for plants to grow. Ugh. Dude, this is so fucking hot. As a blood moon goddess myself, this is just all hitting home for me right now. Snakes are fucking sick. And I also wanted to bring up too that in a lot of Indian scriptures and yoga sutras, the human life force energy is considered to be a snake. The Kundalini energy, which is they describe it as a coiled snake at the base of the spine. So enlightenment would be being able to uncoil this energy at the base of your spine and have it lengthen and come out the top of your head. And it's something that lives within all beings. But I think it's very interesting and primordial that in so many cultures, serpents are associated with the idea of blood, rain, life, and death. That's actually something I need to cover, the primordial serpent, because you already know it's fucking deep out here. Every single fucking culture has shit about the serpent. So anyway, I just think it's so interesting that the corn goddess, the nourishment goddess, is also a serpent goddess. This is like super, super deep. Okay, so Chicōmecōātl, our seven serpent angel, is most commonly depicted with red ochre on her face. And she also is most commonly depicted with a paper headdress known as the amakali, which resembles like a paper house, or sometimes it would be like a paper fan. And she is depicted with a skirt with a water flower pattern on it. And some depictions she's barefoot, some depictions she has sandals. And this is so beautiful. She's often described carrying a sunflower as a shield. Stop it. Or she's often depicted holding a Chicōmecōātl, which is known as a rattlestick. And this is a percussion instrument used for agricultural rituals to penetrate the earth and call for rain. And if she's not depicted with these things, with these objects, she's often depicted with a double ear of corn in each hand. So she's depicted holding different totems. And she's commonly depicted in 3 different forms. So one of her forms is a young girl carrying flowers. Another common form is a woman who brings death with her embrace. And another form is a mother who uses the sun as a shield. Oh my God, stop it. I love her. I love her. She is most commonly celebrated during Huitosostli. And this celebration is the first sequence of 3 festivals, which is held during the high season, marking the harvest. During this celebration, her priestesses would designate the maize seeds that would be planted for the coming season. And priests would often sacrifice children to ask for a good harvest during this time. This sadly was kind of a common practice to appease the gods, to bleed blood into the soil as a offering. And Bisaraja, the biggest fan of the podcast, wants to also mention that most likely Chicōmecōātl's favorite band was Korn. Oh my God. Okay, so next, this is like really obviously tied into Chicōmecōātl. This is the Mayan corn goddess. Sadly, I found less on her, but there's a lot of like overlapping similarities between these 2 goddesses. So she is known by multiple names, sometimes Amun, meaning tender green shoot. Sometimes she is known as Zakwaknal, meaning white 6 new corn. Or she is known as Wakchuaknal, meaning 6 tall new corn. And she is seen as a force of vitality. And she is most usually personified as a female. But interestingly, before the Spanish conquest, the Mayans had increasingly more stories personifying the corn god as a male. I think my inference is that this had to do with Mexica influence. Before the Spanish conquest, the Mexica were going down into the Yucatan and Guatemala more often, and they were trafficking humans and carrying cacao back to the capital as a currency. Cacao was used as a currency for a period of time, and because of that, there was more cultural exchange between the Maya and the Mexica. And from my understanding, the Mexica were quite more of the dominating force. So it's plausible that Mexica people were staying behind in the Mayan empires, and with them bringing some of their culture. But this is again me inferring. So interestingly, there's different mentions of our corn goddess in different stories, and specifically I guess in this case he was referred to as male, but there are some tellings of the hero twin stories, the story of Hunahpu and Xibalenque, which if you haven't heard, I tell in Cat Deities Part 2. But the hero twins is a very popular story from the Popol Vuh, the Mayan epic. In some versions of the story, the two twins were accompanied into the underworld with the corn god himself. Funnily enough, a couple scholars who were white guys supposed that the corn god could be the twins' father, but I haven't personally read any versions of that story, and apparently this has been contested more than it has been agreed with, which does not surprise me. But also, there's other interpretations in different parts of the Popol Vuh which describe the male corn god as the first father, and that he established what is called the 3-stone hearth, which is believed to be a constellation. My mind went to Orion's belt, but I literally have no idea. But they referred to it as the 3-stone hearth. And that he raised the world tree by doing the dance of creation. And he established 5 world trees, thus creating the world we know. Fuck, dude. That's so crazy. I mean, one of my biggest dreams, because like the more I do this research, it's just pretty obvious that the people writing this don't know anything, and they're just trying their best to translate ancient scriptures. But like what I've mentioned so many times is that without cultural context, I feel like we're barely getting half the story. Like we're literally just getting like fragments, paint chips of a giant temple allegorically. And so my dream, I really want to get deeper into like meditating so that I can travel time and space and learn more about this stuff, but not through fucking reading shit online, because this shit is bullshit, you guys. It's fucking bullshit. Anyway. Oh my god. I have one more story that I want to tell, but I just like, let's just talk about me for a second. I have had some pretty crazy success in meditations. I really like meditating with more, what's the word I'm looking for? I do more like guided meditation, hypnotherapy style meditations where I go on like journeys. I'm an Aries, I'm a nut job, and the whole silencing the mind thing isn't super accessible to me. I've only been able to do it once on mushrooms when I was in Brazil, and I fell out pretty fast because I got so excited that I was doing it that I couldn't keep focus. But that was crazy. I don't know if this has ever happened for you guys, but basically it felt like all of my consciousness went into a single flat plane. And so my eyes were in the plane, but it was like I was in a single slice of reality, and it was green, and it had a sound like and like not only was I hearing that noise, but that noise was the shape of my consciousness. I can't explain it. But I actually wanted to talk about a past life regression that I recently had. And it was so fucking trippy. It was really, really scary and really, really sad. And it was a really, really sad life. But I'm bringing this up because I do guided meditations. And I really want to practice doing more guided meditations where I'm leading past life regressions. And I just wanted to know from you listeners if that's something you're interested in. And if it is, please email in at esotericanonnonsense@gmail.com. Okay, moving on. So all of this like corn goddess situation was, when I was researching specifically the Mayan corn goddess, there was the most beautiful photograph, oh my god, I could cry, of a goddess inside of a corn husk. So it was like this corn husk was like flapped open, and there was this little goddess inside of the corn husk, and it just it's my dream. And it reminded me of Kaguya-hime. My fucking favorite. This is such a good episode. This episode's like my dream because it's just a plant goddess episode. I'm obsessed. Okay, so my crazy brain started with Mbokomu and I'm now ending with Kaguya, but it all flows together. You see where I'm coming from. You see my train of thought. It all flows together. So as I was looking at this corn goddess image, it just reminded me immediately of Kaguya. Kaguya is that bitch. Kaguya is that girl. And I'm going to tell you the story of Kaguya-hime. I love her. Okay, so this story is known as the Tale of Princess Kaguya, or it's often known as the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. So this great tale is known as a monogatari, which is a literary form of traditional Japanese literature, an epic, if you will. And so these monogataris are closely tied to oral traditions. So a lot of like really, really ancient Japanese epics, when they were first recorded, were recorded as like almost poetic epics known as monogatari. And technically, the tale of Princess Kaguya is considered to be the oldest monogatari. Right? So you know it's fucking good. Oh, you guys, it's fucking good. So the story goes, long ago, in the bamboo forest, an old bamboo cutter called Taketori no Okina, which translates to old bamboo harvester. Taketori came across a mysterious, shiny bamboo stalk. He can't believe what he sees. His mouth opens. He cuts the bamboo stalk open, and to his surprise, he finds an infant the size of his thumb. So here he finds this tiny, tiny little baby inside of this bamboo stalk. And so he brings it home to his wife. And he and his wife don't have kids. So they say, you know what? Let's raise this baby as our own. And so they decide to call her Neotaki no Kaguya-hime, which means shining princess of the young bamboo. Stop it! Shining princess of the young bamboo? Can that be my name? I want that to be my name. Oh my god, you guys. And so one could assume she was a moon-faced beauty. Kisma. Okay, so from then on, the old man would go to work in the bamboo forest. And as he cut down bamboo, he would find golden nuggets inside each bamboo stalk that he cut down. Fuck yeah, dude. So he was getting rich. And eventually their little family got pretty fucking wealthy. They were finding all this gold. And they were just vibing. So within 3 months, Kaguya-hime grows from an infant into a girl into a regular-sized grown woman who is stunningly beautiful. We're talking breathtaking. We're talking unbelievable. We're talking this bitch is that bitch in 3 months. She went from a thumb-sized little bamboo shoot baby to the hottest bitch ever. I'm obsessed with her. Okay. So naturally, her dad, her adoptive dad, Taketori, is like, let's like keep this on the low because she's so fucking beautiful that like I just feel like we got to keep the men away. So they try to keep it on the low. They try to keep her inside, but you already fucking know the word travels fast. The most beautiful girl literally in the history of the world is just living in this farmer's house. So the suitors start showing up. So there's hella dudes trying to holler at her. And 5 of these suitors are noblemen. The first is the Prince Ishitsukuri. There's also the Prince there's also the Prince Kuramochi. That's such a cute name. Also, the Minister of the Right, Abinomi Muraji, and the Grand Counselor, Otomo no Miyuki. Also, I just wanted to mention, this is just fucked up and stupid, but when I wrote Miyuki, my spell check changed it to Mike. Gross. Okay. And then lastly, the suitor who was the middle counselor, Isonokami no Marotari. Okay, but in a nutshell, these are 5 noblemen who are like, I'm trying to marry you. You're super fucking pretty. So these 5 noblemen beg her father to let Kaguya-hime choose between them who will be her husband. And my girl, Kaguya-hime, is 100% not interested in any of them. My queen! I love her. Okay, so she assigns them 5 impossible tasks, fool's errands, literally just to fucking appease them and also just to keep them busy and out of the way. So she tells them that the man who completes all 5 tasks will be her husband. So the first task is they must bring the stone begging bowl of the Buddha himself, like the Buddha's begging bowl, which is like a stone bowl used for collecting alms and donations. Okay, then they must bring a jeweled branch from the mystical island of Horai. So this island, Horai, also in Chinese mythology, is known as Penglai. This island is like a really famous motif in Chinese folktales and also Japanese stories. And this land is known to bear fruits that cure disease, fruits that raise the dead, and that your rice bowl and wine glass will never be empty on this island. So it's kind of serving well of life, ocean of life energy, mystical island of immortality. Okay, so that's the second task. These guys have to go to this mystical island and bring back a jeweled branch, okay? Task number 3, she wants them to give her a robe made out of Chinese fire rat skins. That sounds really hard. And then they have to bring her a colored jewel from a dragon's neck. And lastly, she wants them to bring her a cowrie shell born from a swallow. And in different parts of the world, cowrie shells are used for divination, fertility, symbols of womanhood, birth, wealth, sometimes even used as like money. So cowrie shells are like very mystical, good luck, fertility situations. Okay. So Kaguya-hime is like, listen, you guys need to complete all of these fucking tasks, and the one who does it, I'll marry. And she already knows these bitches aren't going to do it. So the first suitor realizes that this shit is not possible. He's like, there's no way. So he decides to like fucking lie his way through. So he makes a fake begging bowl out of a blackened pot. He presents it to Kaguya-hime, and she notices that it does not glow with a holy light. So she's like, get the fuck out of here. You're out of the competition. Okay, suitor number 2. He goes to some jewelers and he's like, okay, you guys need to make me a branch encrusted with the finest jewels. However, this fucking idiot, on his way to Kaguya-hime's house, one of the jeweler's employees goes to her house with a bill. They send the bill to Kaguya. Fucking amateurs. So she's like, yeah, what the fuck? So before he even shows up to her house, he's fucking out of the competition. Done. Okay, suitor number 3. He goes to China and buys a coat from a Chinese merchant that this merchant claims to be made out of fire rat skins. But Kaguya puts it to the test. She puts this coat in the fire and it fucking burns right up. So he's fucking out because apparently a jacket made out of fire rat skins is impenetrable to flame. Okay, and now suitor number 4. He sets out to find a dragon. He's like, I'm going to find a fucking dragon. So he takes a boat. He goes out on the open ocean. And the second that a storm happens, he's like, nah. And he turns around. What a little bitch, dude. So he's fucking out. Okay, so lastly, our last suitor, he climbs a tree to retrieve a cowrie shell from a swallow's nest. But he falls from the tree. And he's fucking out. Little bitches, dude. You wish. They fucking wish. So after all of this, Kaguya-hime is becoming kind of like infamous. Like everyone's wondering like, who the fuck is this girl? Like she must be super hot because why are all these dudes like losing their minds over her? So naturally, the word spreads to the Emperor of Japan himself. And he's like, what is all this hype? Like, I need to go peep. Who the fuck is Kaguya-hime? So he shows up to the bamboo cutter's house. He lays eyes on Kaguya and immediately he's in love, obviously, my queen. And he's like, listen, I want to marry you. And Kaguya is like, no. Dude, I'm obsessed. Okay. She doesn't even give him an impossible task. She's just flat out like, not interested. I'm not going to marry you. And her excuse is that she's like, I'm not from your country, so I cannot accompany you to your palace out of respect. Boom. Rejected. Bitch. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with her. Okay. So she and the emperor actually stay in contact. And he keeps trying to marry her, but she turns him down repeatedly. But they keep exchanging letters for 3 years. He's obsessed with her, obviously. Okay, so 3 years later, it's the summertime. And every time Kaguya-hime looks at the full moon, her eyes fill with tears. And she is really melancholy and sad. And so naturally, her parents are worried. And they're asking her, like, Kaguya-hime, what's wrong? Are you okay? And she refuses to answer. And she becomes more and more, like, mysterious and, like, not really communicating. And eventually she becomes kind of erratic and, like, weird. She's just super, super sad and always crying when she looks at the full moon. So finally, she sits her parents down and she tells them the truth. She explains to her adoptive parents that she is not from planet Earth. She is from the moon. Oh, she's a moon-faced beauty. She tells them that she must return to her people on the moon and that she was originally sent to Earth as a punishment for a crime that she would not share with them. But on Earth, she would inevitably form material attachment, thus causing her sadness. So this was all a part of her punishment. Her punishment was that she was not only sent away from home, but sent to create emotional bonds and thus be heartbroken. And specifically, all the gold that the bamboo cutter was finding in all of the bamboo stalks was actually sent from the moon people to pay for Kaguya-hime's well-being. So all of that gold was sent as penance, as a payment for raising Kaguya. So after telling her parents her time is running short, the day of her return grows nearer and nearer. And so the emperor knows about this. So he sends royal guards, to protect Kaguya from the moon people, because obviously he doesn't want her to go. He's trying to fucking marry her. So the day arrives and the moon people come down and they show up at the bamboo cutter's house. And they're blinded by, someone's showing off with their hot rod. Okay, the moon people show up at the house and they're blinded by a strange light. Kaguya-hime comes out. She's glowing. She's radiant. She's beautiful. She turns to her parents. She says, I love you. I love my friends. I love my family. But it's my time to leave and go home to the moon because I'm a moon-faced beauty. I love her. So before she leaves, she sits down and she writes letters. She writes a letter to each of her parents. And she writes a letter to the emperor, and she apologizes and tells them she loves them. And she leaves her kimono with her parents as a little memento. And before she leaves, she attaches a little vial with the elixir of life to the letter addressed to the emperor, and she gives it to one of his guards. So then, at this point, the moon people put a feather robe on Kaguya-hime. And at that moment, all of her compassion and sadness for the people of Earth is forgotten. And they take her back to Suki no Miyako, which means the capital of the moon. Oh my god. What the fuck? This is the best story ever. Okay. So her parents are so sad. They cry and cry and cry. They miss their daughter, Kaguya. And eventually they become sick and they're on bed rest. They're suffering from broken hearts. Meanwhile, the emperor's guards return back to the emperor's palace. And the guard brings the letter of Kaguya-hime to the emperor. And he tells the emperor everything that he saw. The emperor reads the letter and he's fucking sad. He's so sad. He's depressed. He wanted to marry Kaguya. He was obsessed with her. So he asks his servants, he's like, which mountain is the closest to heaven? Which is the tallest fucking mountain? And one of his servants suggests that it's the great mountain of the Suruga province. So he instructs his servants to travel to the mountain peak and burn the letter and burn the elixir of life on top of the mountain, hoping that the fumes of the burning letter and elixir would reach the moon and it would reach Kaguya-hime, because he did not wish to live eternally if it meant he didn't get to see her again. He loves her. So, what fun fact, after this, the mountain became known as Mount Fuji, as the word Fushi means immortality. I had no idea. So the name Mount Fuji literally traces back to this fucking story of Kaguya-hime, our little bamboo moon goddess. Also, fun fact, the kanji, or the Japanese character for the word mountain, translates literally to mountain abounding with warriors. And so it is thought that the kanji, the character for mountain, derives from this specific story, as it describes the ascension of the warriors of the emperor as they went to Mount Fuji to carry out the orders. And it is said that to this day, smoke can be seen rising from the mountain, as it is the smoke of the burning letter and the elixir of life. Now, Mount Fuji actually used to be an active volcano, and it is not so active anymore. So it's very possible that when this story was originally told, that Mount Fuji was still active. So there's the story of our beautiful Kaguya-hime. I also want to mention that there is a movie, an animated film about Kaguya. I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to. And also, if you're into Naruto Shippuden, if you get pretty deep, they actually have Kaguya's in it. Her story is slightly different than this Kaguya, but she's also from like outer space, and she is a plant goddess, and she is considered like the mother of all jutsu. And she ends up marrying the emperor, and they have 2 sons who are like the 2 fathers of like the warring clans of the ninja wars. Highly recommend. It's amazing. Naruto is amazing. If you don't watch Naruto, I highly recommend. It's super fucking cool. They combine a lot of like real mysticism and ancient wisdom of Asia and kind of like turn it into a fictional tale, but it's way deeper than you think. Like when you first start watching it, you might think it's like a kid show, but it's like literally so deep. Highly recommend. Okay, one last thing I really wanted to mention. This story of Kaguya is like so amazing, so beautiful, so deep, but like I think a really big thing to remember, especially with Japanese stories, is that Japan sealed its borders from the outside world for over 300 years, especially during a time where colonialism was running rampant all over planet Earth. And in those 300 years, so many cultures had libraries burned. They weren't allowed to speak their native tongue, scriptures burned, indoctrination with new religions such as Christianity. So a lot of the world has kind of been robbed of their ancient culture. And one thing that's really special about Japan is that so much of their ancient culture is preserved, which is amazing. But because of that, I do wonder how the story of Mbokomu and the story of Chicōmecōātl would have sounded if we had heard these stories before the European conquest. And it's very possible that the original telling of these stories was never recorded. So yeah, I just really want you to think about that sadly, like, the story of Mbokomu and Chicōmecōātl are barely intros. You know, we don't really know the meat of their stories and the meat of how they were revered or even possibly worshipped. So that's just really something to think about. Colonialism, sadly, is layered with so much human exploitation, violence, and eradication of native cultures. And this is not specific to any one place. This is all over the world. And I think it's really sad, and it's just something to keep in mind as we're hearing these stories, that a lot of the context and even just general information has been tainted and or erased. So that being said, I hope that you have a beautiful day, a beautiful night, whatever time of day it is. I hope that today you choose creativity. I hope that today you touch some plants. Tell some plants that you love them. Plants are conscious beings. If you don't believe me, you can look into it. They've done a bunch of scientific research. Plants are conscious beings. It does not surprise me that in a lot of ancient cultures, plants were associated with goddesses. Plants are conscious, and they are the keepers of this planet. And I dare you to go out and touch a plant today and say, "You're so beautiful and I love you." That's my challenge for you. Thank you for listening to my podcast. Did I mention something and you were like, "Oh my gosh, is there something you want to tell me?" Please tell me. Please write an email to esotericaandnonsense@gmail.com. Whatever platform you're listening on, if you have the ability to rate my podcast or write a review, I would really appreciate it. am so appreciative of anyone who's listening to my podcast. I really appreciate you. This is a magical planet, and write in, be my friend. Give me a good review, please. Okay, over and out.